Thank you everyone. Councilwoman Susan Shepherd, I'm so glad to see so many of you turning out today to hear about the wonderful information being presented. Let me just get a quick show of hands. How many of you are currently homeless? How many of you, leave your hands up, how many of you have been homeless? How many of you are service providers to the homeless? All right, so we've got the right people in the room, clearly. Alrighty, well first of all, I just want to start out by profusely thanking Dr. Tony Robinson and the Denver Homeless Out Loud for conducting this survey. One of the things that was the most distressing about this issue when it came before council a year ago was that the homeless were never consulted about this law before it went into place. There were a few opportunities, very, very few, for us to hear about homeless and what folks were experiencing during this debate, but it was very, very late in the discussion of the issue, and believe me, everybody's minds had already been made up. That was very distressing. So I can't thank you all enough for doing this very comprehensive survey and for giving us the chance to hear what folks are really experiencing. As Dr. Robinson mentioned, there was a lot of talk and language about how this was going to be the compassionate response to help connect people to services, that it was inhumane to have people sleeping outside. And I believe that some of my colleagues may have voted to support this bill based on that messaging. But let me tell you, I spent, I think, at least 3 hours on Easter Sunday reading the full, entire 80-page report. I'm not a numbers person, Dr. Robinson is. I'm someone who speaks and thinks and leads from the heart. I want to share just a little bit with you from what I read in this survey and what moved me the most. And those were the anecdotal quotes from people in the streets that are experiencing this every day. I've moved out of downtown. Now I'm always listening for people sneaking in. I'm tired all the time. I'm sick from the weather. I just keep walking. I'm tired of walking, but I hardly sleep anymore. It's not safe. I'm tired a lot, and I'm pissed off all day because of lack of sleep. Now I sleep lightly, and I change places nightly, but there are noises and people fighting keeps me up. There have been emotional effects. I'm feeling more stressed. I'm in a bad mental state for lack of sleep. Walking further means physical effects. I'm more negative. I worry about anyone approaching. I sleep less. It's stressful. I can't dream about my wife as much, and I wake up too much. It's hard to sleep when you don't feel safe where you're at. I have physical fatigue from lack of sleep. And then people were also asked why they thought the city of Denver passed this ban, and I just want to read a couple of those quotes. People see us as trash. Working people are tired of seeing homeless in the park and dirty. I think people passed it to ease the conscience of a status quo, since people are not doing hardly anything to help the homeless. It seems fashionable of late to hate the poor. People believe we are an embarrassment to the environment and that no pity should be taken for the lazy homeless. This is heartbreaking. I cried when I read this. This is so moving. And this is exactly what we knew, those of us who opposed this ban. Thank you very much as well, Councilman Lopez. We knew what would happen. And it is heartbreaking. That is anything but compassionate, and that is anything but how a compassionate city should respond to the folks that need help the most. Now, I have to say, I know a lot of you heard my testimony during the ban talk, and I was extremely angry. And when I hear about stuff like this, my first response, my first reaction is to want to lash out at the opponents. Because this is hurtful, and this continues to hurt, and it will continue to hurt until we can figure out how we're going to deliver services better. But I talk to God a lot. I'm sure a lot of you do too. And I don't always want to listen to what he has to say, but he said to me, Susan, if you lash out, guess what? You're not being compassionate either. That's not the compassionate response. As Tom Lewis said in the beginning, the bridge is, the water under the bridge on the act itself. We've got to figure out how we're going to move forward. And the compassionate response is for us to look for the divine in each other and in ourselves, to forgive what has happened here, and to roll up our sleeves and figure out how we can come together. And everyone everyone in this room I know can take, we can each do something to make this situation better. We can offer a meal. We can offer spiritual counseling. Those of us who can write a check can write a check. We can volunteer in lots of ways, and we can work on solutions. And that's what I'm focusing on today, and that's my message for all of us in this room today. So I do want to acknowledge a couple of our colleagues on council, and to Dr. Robinson's point about finding a dedicated revenue source, I do want to say, number one, that Councilwoman Robin Kinich, who's also been very excellent on this issue, is in the process of revising our inclusionary housing ordinance, which will eventually allow for the creation of a certain number of new affordable units. And then secondly, both Councilwoman Kinich and Councilman Brooks are in very early discussions right now about possible sustainable funding sources for additional affordable housing and also homeless services, specifically focusing on the rapid rehousing efforts, which I believe is one of the recommendations in the report. So anyway, this whole report just shows us that the premise for which it was passed was false. We're failing. We are failing. And I'm here to bear witness to that, to speak the truth to you, to give the homeless a voice. These quotes are so important, and I know we're going to hear from some other people here in just a minute who are currently experiencing homeless. As an elected leader, I am listening, I hear you, and we're going to all work a lot harder and do a lot better, okay? So namaste, and thank you so much for letting us speak.
I'm actually really amazed at the turnout. I'm glad you're here. I voted against the ban because it's just not the right thing to do. And I've always been guided by my heart and also my life. My blood is in these streets. I have family who are homeless. I get hit up all the time by my own family at gas stations asking me for change, and they don't even recognize me. They always have their heads held low. And I have to put my hand on their shoulder and be like, cousin, it's me. It's your cousin. Or uncle, let me give you a ride. Are you staying somewhere tonight? I worked with homeless youth over at Urban Peak for a while. And I never forgot those stories. One thing I can say and just encourage you to do is keep participating. Be visible. Don't be invisible. Be visible. And when somebody walks around asking you if you would like to register to vote, fill that sucker out permanently. Or walk it yourself and make sure you turn that in yourself. I know some folks have some time and they could actually turn that thing in. And when the time comes to vote, you vote. When the time comes to speak up, you speak up. Society is going to be remembered, and I can't think, I don't know, Professor Robinson, you probably know this quote. You can recite a lot of different things. But I know I learned this in one of his political science classes, that one of the greatest measures of society is how it treats its the weakest among them. Yeah. And this is not a good measure for this city. There are some ideas that my colleagues kicked around last April as amendments. One of them is to make sure that we study the bill and report back, and they didn't like that idea. So I think, perhaps, Susan, maybe we can put that idea around again. We were only 4 against 9, but that's how things start changing. So we'll keep doing our best. I'll do my best. I represent the west side out in Alameda and Federal, far from here, but a lot of the families in my district either have been homeless or are a paycheck away from it. And so, you have our support. They are very, very supportive of these issues. They're very anti-camping ban out there in Council District 3. You have brothers and sisters always across this city. We just need to help convince the proponents of this bill that this is not the right thing. They're not evil people. They just made bad decisions. They're not bad people, they just made bad decisions. And they have bad ideas. And so we need this is exactly the kind of stuff that we need to show folks. And maybe they'll change their heart and their ways, And I hope that they can see that, or think of a better way to help the folks who are on the street, other than ask them to move, and if not, to take them to jail. So, thank you. I didn't intend to speak, but, excuse me, I have to go. My aide, my assistant in my office, it's her birthday today. I have to go get flowers and be there by 11. So,